My name is Mary, a 35-year-old employee. I was born with a weak constitution, often catching cold and missing school. Perhaps, due to this, I didn't have many close friends. Even in middle school, my frailty didn't change. Classmates who didn't like this often approached me saying, "Hey, you're supposedly sick and missing school, but in reality you just want to play hooky, right? It must be nice having it so easy. We can't take off because our parents are strict." Honestly, I'm envious. Being spoken ill of like that was a usual occurrence. I often came back home feeling hurt and wounded by the heartless words of my classmates. I felt as if there was an invisible wall between me and my classmates, making my middle school days particularly difficult. As an adult, I couldn't easily miss work for a minor fever, so I always put work first, even if it meant pushing myself. Especially as a new employee, my training supervisor was extremely stern. He constantly said things like, "Illness comes from the mind. Show some spirit." So keeping up with it was quite a struggle. As my days were consumed by work, I noticed my peers getting married and becoming happy. It made me realize that I was reaching that age too. However, I never felt a rush to get married. I believed I would never find a kind person who would want to marry someone with my health issues. But life is unpredictable, and unexpectedly, a man who invited me out for a meal appeared out of the blue. This person is my husband, Thomas. "Hey, looks like you're finishing up for the day, right? If it's all right with you, would you like to grab dinner together?" Thomas was an elite, a graduate of a prestigious university, and was considered a future head of the department. He was not only competent at work, but also cooperative and trusted by everyone around him. He had a personality completely opposite to my introverted one. I was surprised when he suddenly invited me to dinner. At first, I didn't even realize he was talking to me, and thought he must have mistaken me for someone else. However, it seemed he was indeed inviting me, which even left me blurting out, "Huh?" Thomas was quite popular with the female employees because of his personality and good looks. It was a mystery to me why he was still single. Yes, I'm almost done with my work, so that would be fine." In the end, I couldn't refuse his invitation, so I went along for dinner. But this meal became the catalyst for the two of us to grow close quickly. He was very friendly, and the conversation flowed naturally. It was the first time in a long time I had been able to laugh and talk with someone other than family. Although I had to head home because of work the next day, I found myself wishing I could spend more time with him. We started spending more time together after that meal, and 3 months later, we began dating. Considering our ages, we decided to marry a year after we started dating. We found a small apartment near the train station and moved in together. I never imagined I'd get married and truly believed I was about to start a happy life. I never expected this marriage to be the beginning of a nightmare. Shortly after getting married, he gradually began to reveal his true nature. After our marriage, I switched jobs and started working at a different company. It was a company with many female employees. During the interview, when I mentioned my health issues, they reassured me that with so many women working there, I shouldn't worry. Today, I was able to take a day off due to their understanding. "Hey, why are you sleeping? The head of the household is back. Shouldn't you welcome me home? You're so dumb." As soon as I got home, he came into the room with a sulky face, seemingly displeased that I hadn't greeted him. "I'm sorry. I was feeling unwell today and took the day off from work. I'm about to make dinner. Why don't you go take a bath first?" Upon hearing these words, Thomas, who was already in a bad mood, said, "Huh? You're just starting to make dinner now? When a husband comes home, it's obvious that dinner should be ready. Are you lying about being sick just because you want to skip household chores? You're such an incorrigible woman." His words reminded me of what my classmates used to say to me back in my school days. They would often say I was skipping class under the guise of being sick. Their words would always hurt my heart, but even when I was feeling sick, Thomas never helped with the chores. Instead, he treated me like a housemaid. Then, one day, a certain incident happened. I felt particularly bad that day, with a fever exceeding 104 degrees, and dizzy to the point where I couldn't even stand up. Ideally, Thomas should have taken me to the hospital, but instead, he grabbed his carry-on bag and walked straight out the front door without a glance at me. "Wait a minute! You're leaving me in this condition?" Shocked by his indifference, I couldn't help but shout. It can't be helped. It was planned from before. Take care of the rest." With that, he really left the house. About 30 minutes after he left, my condition worsened. I called an ambulance myself and was taken to the hospital. My parents and my brother came rushing to the hospital as soon as they heard the news. While receiving an IV, I explained everything that had happened so far. As I spoke, both my parents' and brother's faces turned red. Leaving his sick wife behind to go on a trip, this behavior was unacceptable, not only to my parents, but also to me. That's why I decided to carry out a certain plan with my parents and brother. I did text him that I was hospitalized, and soon after I got a message from Thomas. "I'm about to head home, so I called the house but no answer. Are you still in the hospital? Come home and cook my dinner." Seeing this message, my brother decided to call Thomas. Thomas, surprised by the sudden call from my brother from my phone, assumed it was me and started talking arrogantly. However, when he realized it was my brother, he immediately changed his tone and started apologizing, but it was too late. With a low, angry voice, my brother said to him, "Sorry to inform you, but Mary won't be coming back to that house. She passed away." "What?" Even Thomas couldn't hide his surprise at the shocking words that suddenly came out of my brother's mouth. However, he soon regained his composure and said with a nonchalant tone, "I see. Understood. Once things settle down, I'll take care of the necessary procedures. Thank you for everything till now." And with that, he hung up the phone. Wouldn't most people, upon hearing their wife had passed away while traveling, rush home in a panic? Yet he, far from showing concern, hasn't even asked about the funeral schedule. In other words, he couldn't care less about me. After that, I felt something snap within me. From then on, I decided to carry out a plan that my brother had devised. While he was at work, I returned home. I deliberately cleaned up the messy room until it sparkled, folded the laundry that had been hung up, and put away the dishes, and took great care not to drop a single speck of dust. I checked things like the drains and toothbrushes during that time. I thoroughly checked for any evidence. After doing this a few times, my brother received a call from him. "Hey, it's rare for you to call. What's up?" Although he spoke calmly, my brother's eyes were smiling. He probably knew he would get a call. Unaware of this, he said over the phone, Can I ask you something? Did you go into my room while I was out?" "Into your room? No, I didn't go in. Why would you ask that?" Perhaps even he, as insensitive as he is, found it eerie that the room was constantly sparkling clean, so he thought my brother was entering the room and called to confirm. "The thing is, the room that was messy until this morning is incredibly clean when I returned home. The trash on the floor was thrown away, the laundry is folded. Something is weird. Did you come to pick up Mary's stuff?" Speaking with a tremor in his voice, my brother replied, "Oh, come on, there's no way I'd do that. I never got a spare key to your room from my sister when she was alive, and our mom has been too busy with work lately to visit you there. Thomas, you must be tired to think this way." Although it was my brother who planned it, I was the one carrying it out. Even for my brother, it was impossible to enter the room without permission. Therefore, in legal terms, it's still me, his wife, who is doing this. I, who was listening to the conversation next door, had a hard time not bursting out laughing. If your room was ransacked, I could understand, but it's clean. Is there a problem with that? No, that's not. It seems he has something he doesn't want to say. My husband fell silent. A few days later, there was another call from him to my brother's cell phone. Apparently, strange things continued to happen after that, so he consulted with the police. However, the police officer did not take his story seriously. Because if things were missing, they could understand. But when he explained that the rooms were sparkling clean, the laundry was folded, they laughed and said, "Are you living alone? Maybe your mom came from your family home and cleaned up your room. Or did you forget that you cleaned up while you were drunk? Anyway, since nothing is missing, you should be grateful." That's unfortunate, but as the police officer said, nothing is missing. That's a good thing, right? Maybe Mary's spirit is lingering in your room, cleaning it up while you're away. Upon saying this, he seemed to take it seriously and hung up with a trembling voice. Eventually, considering the potential nuisance to others, I decided to reveal myself to my husband. One day, timing it perfectly with my husband Thomas's return, I entered the room to find him asleep on the sofa, his face flushed red. He might have come back from a drinking party, or maybe the alcohol helped him sleep better. The table and floor were strewn with cans of beer. It seemed like he had fallen asleep in his drunken stupor. Seeing him fast asleep and snoring, I decided to carry out a special surprise I had in mind. "Oh, what's going on?" Thomas suddenly jumped as the light, which he thought had been turned off, suddenly switched on. Seeing me, whom he believed had passed away based on the information from my brother, he let out a yell. "Ah! A ghost!" An adult man saw me and immediately yelled that I was a ghost, tears welling up in his eyes as he stared at me. I'm sorry I didn't attend the funeral. I promised to pray for you, so please rest in peace." He mumbled these words while putting his hands together, trembling. "Look carefully. I've got legs, right? I'm not a ghost. I'm very much alive." Confirming the existence of my legs, he turned red with anger this time, glaring at me with a terrifying expression. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Do you think this is acceptable? Plus, you've even involved my parents. Unforgivable. I'll take legal action against you for this." Yes, against the outburst, I was about to execute the real surprise. Suddenly, my mother, who had been waiting outside the entrance, went to call someone. The moment he saw the person, Thomas, who had been red with anger just a moment ago, turned pale and began to sweat profusely. "What's wrong? You're pale and sweating. Are you feeling unwell? Maybe you should go to the hospital." It was understandable why his complexion was poor, because the person standing in front of him was someone he had recently traveled with. It was the woman with whom he had had an affair. In reality, my brother, suspecting Thomas's infidelity, had been talking to a friend who worked in the same company. Since I left the job, Thomas had been getting along well with a woman named Natalie, who worked at the reception of the same company. It seemed as if they were just friendly colleagues, but multiple employees had witnessed the two of them getting cozy in the break room, and rumors circulated in the company that the two might be dating. But many employees knew that he was married to me, so they immediately realized that their relationship was something more than just friendship. His good friends were torn between reporting this to me and the boss. They were hesitant because they were worried about me, who had always been weak, and how I might fall sick from the shock. Hearing this, the woman bowed her head and bit her lip. Unbearably embarrassed, Thomas called his mother to explain the situation. In response, his furious mother shouted at us with a ferocious tone. "What is this? Tricking my son like this? I've always disliked you. Despite not graduating from a prestigious university, you are so arrogant. On top of that, you all tricked my son and hurt him, which is unforgivable. I'll make sure you divorce. There will be no alimony." Whether it was because she had been shouting or not, she was taking heavy breaths, her shoulders heaving up and down. Of course, if she didn't know the situation, it was only natural for her to be upset, thinking we were bullying Thomas one-sidedly. However, my father spoke calmly, explaining the whole situation to my fuming stepmother. The first time she heard this, she had a look on her face that said she could hardly believe it. When he explained that her son had abandoned his wife, who was suffering from poor health, to go out with his mistress, who was in the room, it seemed she finally noticed the presence of this mistress. Her previous bluster was gone, and she was simply shaken. The woman, feeling completely uncomfortable, bowed her head in apology to us. "I am so sorry. I will fully pay you damages, please. Forgive me." Unlike her flustered boyfriend and dazed Mil, the woman bowed deeply and apologized. I had her write a promissory note on the spot, and when I told her I would consult a lawyer at a later date, she responded in a frail voice, "Understood." I couldn't possibly forgive someone who had done this to me. I showed him the filled out divorce papers and said, "I can't possibly forgive you for this. I'm going to consult a lawyer about everything that's happened." After that, I divorced him. Because he didn't come to my aid when I was ill, I ended up receiving a significant amount of money. With that money, I rented a small apartment and have been commuting to work from there. The office is still full of talks about the two of them, but I don't know if it's because he's thick-skinned or what, but he continues to work as if nothing has happened. Hearing about that doesn't make me feel anything. If anything, I think, so that's what kind of man he was. I decided to try and forget about this as soon as possible, and threw myself into my work even more than before. Even with difficult tasks, I worked hard to understand them while asking my boss, and it seems that my efforts were recognized as I was chosen for a 1-year overseas assignment. I am already fluent in English, so I won't have any trouble living abroad. Just as I was getting excited about my overseas assignment, I suddenly started getting repeated calls from an unknown number. Since it was an unknown number, I initially thought it was a wrong number, but since it kept calling over and over again, I thought it might be someone I know and answered the call. "Hello? Who is this?" When I cautiously asked, it turned out to be Thomas. "It's been a while, Mary. Have you been well? I just wanted to hear your voice and ended up calling." Unbelievable! He called me casually after what happened. I wondered what he could think of me. The more I heard his voice, the more angry I became. "What do you want now? I have nothing to discuss with you. After this call, never contact me again." Then he started talking with a desperate voice. "Wait, just listen to me for a second. Actually, I married Natalie, but she doesn't do any housework at all. Since we got married, she doesn't clean at all, and all we eat are pre-made meals. On top of that, I've started to have to take care of my mother. Honestly, I'm in trouble." Although she looked beautiful and neat, in reality, she didn't do any housework. All the meals are grab-and-go food or ready-made meals. She doesn't clean, so the floor is covered in dust. On top of everything, he had to begin to take care of his Mil, and in desperation he turned to me for help. I couldn't help but let out a heavy sigh over the phone, and I felt more certain than ever that breaking up had been the right choice. "I'm sorry, but I'm scheduled for an overseas assignment and there's nothing I can do. Besides, she's the woman you chose. You can't blame anyone else. Take care of your own wife." Upon learning I couldn't assist due to my overseas posting, he pleaded, "Help me! Take me with you to your new overseas position. I can't stand this filthy woman anymore. Life was better with you. Give me another chance." But even if he asks for another chance, he wanted this outcome. No matter how much he struggles, he can't return to the previous state. He was still talking over the phone, but I left him hanging, said I had work, and ended the call, then blocked his number. He didn't like that, it seems. That very day, he showed up at my parents' house, demanding a remarriage and help, spouting nonsense. My father called the police, and he was taken to the station. The company found out about this, and he got fired. He also got divorced, and to pay alimony, he is helping out with the family business while taking care of his mother. Apparently, the family business is physically demanding and quite harsh. and he tries to run away from home many times. But each time he is brought back by relatives, and he seems to be having a hard time every day.